Hello and welcome to Geekdomo's RampUp of EverQuest Next. Alright, today we're going to talk a little bit about classes, the Holy Trinity, and dispel some myths and rumors that are going around about EverQuest Next. Alright, let's go into character looks. Now, the looks apparently are going to be so distinguishable between each class that people that have been playing for a while will be able to tell what class a person is by the way they're holding their body and what way they're holding their weapons. This is what they call their visual language. Wizard might stand sort of slunched over, staff they're holding it a certain way, whereas a warrior could still be carrying a staff, but he'll hold it more grand and maybe sort of a heroic pose. Each one of the classes, when they pull off one of their action maneuvers, that's linked to the way they are set up at that moment. If this is sounding a bit confusing, think of it this way. Basically, a wizard might be more of a scholarly type, so they might be sort of standing there with sort of a hunched over look because they've been in books all day long, whereas a warrior is very strong, very regal, might come out there with sort of a Incredible Hulk look about them. Matter of fact, some of the maneuvers they did model directly from comic book characters, and they used the Hulk as an example to say that when a warrior leaps through the air, it will look like the Incredible Hulk at times. Now, let's talk a little bit about character abilities. Each character will have 4 major abilities, and the major abilities are either movement, offensive, defensive, and utility. Each particular character class will break down those into different amounts. If you have a rogue, they might have 2 offensive abilities, 1 defensive, and 1 utility ability. Some have more of these traits, some have less of these traits. You will not find any of the character classes will have all of one or the other. Say there's a Shadow Knight class that has nothing but offensive abilities. It's not true. They will still have at least 1 defensive and 1 offensive type ability. You will be able to level up your character's class independently of the other classes that you have found. Remember, we were talking about yesterday that the character classes will be found as you're running around and doing quests and things. Now, each one of these classes will be obtainable. Every single person can get every single class that's out there, but there might be some quests involved with them. Go dig a hole in this particular area and maybe you'll find a lost tome or something like that. But every single person who plays the game will be able to get every single class. There is no restriction on the number of classes that a person can get. Going along with this thought, the classes will level up independently of one another. You can have like a tier 1 rogue, a tier 4 warrior, a tier 6 wizard, a tier 2 bard, and so on and so on. Every time you level up one of your classes, you will be able to take those abilities and put them into your main build. An example of this would be like this. Imagine you have a fighter who wants to be really a magic user at the same time, okay? Say this fighter really wants to shoot fireballs from his sword. If he levels up wizard long enough, he might get the ability to shoot fireballs. He can then take that ability once he's gained enough levels in wizard and drag it over to his warrior build. What they're saying right now is you will be able to swap in and out of any number of builds that you set up. You'll be able to swap them out at any time outside of combat, which makes sense. In combat would be ridiculous. For PvPing, you could build some crazy build. They did say that there's no reason why there can't be min-maxers. You have no restriction on the amount of abilities that you can tweak a certain number of ways to get the most power for that particular build. So there will be websites out there like Noxious or Wowhead or whatever. There'll be something similar for EverQuest, I'm absolutely sure. And people on there will be able to say, if you take Warrior and you take Wizard tier 5 and you take Rogue tier 3 and you take Paladin tier 3 and you grab this spell from this one, this spell from this one, this spell for this one, this spell from this one, you put them into your bar, you're the most powerful warrior on the planet. There will be sites out there that do that sort of thing. And EverQuest is saying, we don't care. Go for it. Because if a person wants to work that hard at getting the most efficient build possible, that's great. Here comes the tricky part. They're talking about that the abilities are one thing, but the weapons are something completely different. A weapon might have a skill on it that maybe lowers the cast time of teleport abilities, or maybe increases the number of times that you can do an offensive ability, something like that. So even though you're doing all this by leveling up your classes, you also have to find the exact right weapon to do this. That's why even if there is such a thing as the most powerful warrior build out there, it will take a lot of work, and they are totally fine with people doing that, obviously, because it means they'll be playing extra long to get to that particular point. The other thing they mentioned about class levels before we move on is that any level that you earn as one class can be applied to any of the different classes you've already found. So if you really love warrior, but you know you want to build up a wizard, you can go ahead and do that. You can just keep leveling up your warrior, and as you level, you take those experience points and you move them into your wizard side. Now let's get to the controversial part, the Holy Trinity. Now, for those who might not be familiar, as of right now, except games like Guild Wars 2 and a couple other ones, there is no such thing as a Holy Trinity. Guild Wars 2 basically says we don't want it at all, and every character can both defend, offense, and heal. EverQuest Next, they want to sort of mute it even more. So what they're going to be doing is not allowing a particular build to be just tank, just heal, just DPS. You will be able to tweak it so you are pretty an effective healer or you are a pretty effective tank, but what they're talking about is they're going to get rid of the abilities for mobs to just sit there and focus on you for an indefinite amount of time. Example is this. I'll go through the World of Warcraft example. In World of Warcraft, you're raiding the Lich King, and you're on the first boss, Bone Guy. When your tank runs in there, his whole job is to insult the Bone Guy, slap him around, talk about his mother, and the entire rest of the raid, all 25 other people, besides the one off tank, is going to turn and burn that guy down as quick as they possibly can, and the healers are supposed to stand around and doing heal spam, trying to heal everybody, make sure they all stay alive. But for the most part, the monster, the boss, is effectively just staying on the tank. Now, there are scripted events that everybody remembers from that fight where that boss will turn off of the main tank and just start wandering around the room and hitting people willy-nilly. With EverQuest Next, they built such advanced AI to where the tank runs in there, he starts insulting, the monster goes, aha, yeah, I really want to fight him. But what ends up happening is, soon as the DPS guys, I'm using air quotes here, start blasting at him, he goes, wait a second, I don't care this guy said this about my mother. This guy over here is making my hair catch on fire. So he'll turn off the tank and he'll run over to the guy who's setting his hair on fire. So that's what they're talking about. They were getting rid of the Holy Trinity, as in the monsters are now so smart they aren't going to fall for that technique anymore. Now this has made a lot of people really upset because in their mind they are going, that is the only way you can play a game. You have to have somebody that is a tank, you have to have somebody who's a healer, and you have to have other people that are DPSing the boss down. Yes and no. Games like Guild Wars have proven that you can do this. You can have a class that kind of does everything, that heals, defense, and also has some DPS ability. But it does make it a bit tricky because you have to be a little bit more agile on your feet. You have to be able to run around and do all that kind of stuff a little bit better than you probably were in the past. I'm not saying one way is right or another way is wrong, just that I think it's time for maybe we could move on from the stuck mindset that it has to be this way. It had to be that way for a very long time because the artificial intelligence that was in the monsters of the day, we're talking EverQuest, Dark Age of Camelot, all these different, they could only script in a certain thing, like attack the main guy who's making you angry, and that's it. And when a random amount of time happens, then switch off of that guy and then just pick somebody at random until that guy insults you again. That's the way the AI worked. It was very scripted. The new artificial intelligence is much more clever, and it can go into a lot of different reasons why it might want to fight one person or another, which means that you really have to become a better player, and you have to kind of think on your toes and be able to maneuver, think through the fight instead of just sitting there mashing buttons. Alright, enough about the Holy Trinity. Let's move on. The classes will be able to be adjusted. You'll be able to pull in different things from different places, but the weapons are going to be stagnant. They're going to be stuck on one thing or another. A sword only gets these two different types of attacks. I know that sounds a little bit frustrating, but the fact is, with a system like this, you're probably not going to care that much because you will be able to change certain aspects of the weapon. You'll be able to change certain parts that might unlock other traits that you can then use with your abilities. Basically, they've said they want people to stare less at cooldowns and focus more on actually just enjoying the game, which I can applaud them for, because in World of Warcraft or any of the other games I've been playing recently, you're constantly looking at the cooldowns. When can I cast that thing again? Because I need to do more damage. I need to get this thing down because it's going to kick my butt. They don't want you to do that. They just want you to kind of watch the screen and sort of get a feel for what the combat is doing and then switch it up from there. Okay, I guess that's about it for today. Thanks a lot for watching. We will cover some more stuff about EverQuest Next and other games that are coming up soon. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them below. A lot of the stuff we talked about today is completely up in the air. I got most of the information from either Reddit, wikis, or specifically the EverQuest Next panel on classes. So if you want to watch that, that's about 2 hours long. You can watch that and get better details on what I was saying. Alright, thanks a lot for watching, everybody. This is Geekdomo. Until next time, see ya!